Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening from whichever part of the world you're joining us today. And welcome to a very important event of the year, which is the World Patient Safety Day. We know that this has been an important event for the last 3 years or so, ever since World Patient Safety became an important part of the discussion amongst healthcare providers, policymakers, and patients and caregivers themselves. So to commemorate this day, we are holding in 2022, the World Patient Safety Day, with the theme that the WHO has set for us, which is medication without harm. We have fantastic speakers who will be speaking on different topics for today. But let me give you a brief introduction on how we started our journey and why we felt this was important. We started this year's events with a series of 6 webinars on different topics. And those webinars were meant to highlight the various aspects of World Health Organization's thematic areas on, patient safety related to and discussing around the topic medication without harm. So today's discussion will be sort of a culmination of those 6 webinars, and we will then try and see and understand from our various experts on today's panel on how medication without harm can become a reality in the context of the Global Patient Safety Action Plan, and what can each country do at its country level with various stakeholders to make this a reality. So please join me in welcoming our speakers for this session today. And Ankit, if I can have my slides, please. So this is a brief introduction about myself, and if we can go to the slides that I was to have presented today. So while we bring up those slides, as a outcome of those 6 webinars that we had and the feedback that we received from various patient organizations, patients, families, caregivers, other healthcare providers, stakeholders, policymakers, etc. We brought together all those learnings, and we felt that there needed to be a wider discussion. And therefore, we came up with this idea of a patient safety advisory board that will then support something called the Asia Pacific Patient Safety Network. And this network is an informal body that will have patient advocates and other people who are interested in furthering the whole idea of patient safety in this particular region. Next slide, please. So we had our inaugural meeting just a few days back, and I'm very happy and pleased to announce that these were the members who joined us for our first inaugural meeting. The meeting was extremely useful in terms of giving us the direction on how this network would be formed, what could be the membership criteria, what should we be doing in the first few years to increase awareness around patient safety, and also a lot of insights on how countries are working to address the issues of patient safety and the differences that many of these member countries have in terms of preparedness and moving the whole agenda of patient safety forward. Next slide, please. So these are the objectives with which we set up this patient safety network. The first objective is the formation of the Patient Safety Advisory Board. And I said before, we just had our inaugural meeting a couple of days back. The second objective is to raise awareness on patient safety among stakeholders, and we hope that our advisory board members, as well as other members who will be joining us and forming the larger network, will be moving us forward and helping us to be able to take the agenda. So the third objective is to build the capacity of patient champions involved in patient safety activities from Asia Pacific region. And this would mean that we would develop some kind of a course, which could be maybe a virtual course or an in-person course, depending upon the kind of resources that are required and the support that we get from various stakeholders, and create those patient advocates who learn the language of patient safety and are able to sit in various forums and bring the perspectives of the patients to these forums. And the fourth objective is to strengthen awareness around the WHO's Global Patient Safety Action Plan. And this would be through events such as the one that we are having today. And we've also designed a course to demystify the action plan in the 35 strategic areas, the 7x5 matrix that is there, so that a lay person can understand what this patient safety action plan means. It's a small self-paced course that is available free of cost virtually. And anyone who wants to understand what the Global Patient Safety Action Plan means can join and be able to go through the course on their own. So thank you very much. And it is my pleasure to invite Ankit and Tamanna to make a brief presentation on a survey that we are conducting, which we will be hopefully finishing by the end of this month, to be able to understand what kind of awareness and information and knowledge exists amongst patients and caregivers around patient safety. So this is a small initiative by the organizations, by two organizations in India, represented by Ankit and Tamanna. And over to you, Ankit and Tamanna.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratna. Welcome to all the speakers and participants who have joined us today for World Patient Safety Day 2022. Myself, Ankit Dabra, Manager Projects, Patient Academy for Patients Academy for Innovation and Research, and with my colleague Tamanna Sachdeva from Dakshma Health. So let me share my presentation. Yeah, so as we all know, patient safety is the major public health concern in India. And for this, we have conducted a survey, patient safety survey, assessing awareness, knowledge, and practice of people living with NCDs in India. And the studies is carried out by the Patient Academy for Innovation and Research and Dakshma Health. And the survey is still open. It is an ongoing study. So here's the introduction. As we all know, the patient safety is a global public health concern, and as per the WHO, the burden of harm can be decreased by 15% if we can include patients in decision making, and by sharing their observations of patient safety with their healthcare workers. So the burden can be decreased by 15%. Many such groups, many patient groups which are more vulnerable, such as elderly patients, children, those in palliative care, and the most important ones, which is patient living with NCDs. So due to this, it becomes very important to understand the level of awareness of people living with NCDs about patient safety. And there are only few studies from India which is able to assessing awareness, knowledge of patient safety, about patient safety, of patient safety, and especially for people living with NCDs. So our overall, the main general objective of the study is to assess the patient safety awareness, knowledge, and practice of people living with NCDs in India. And where we have certain specific objectives also. The specific objective is to gain some insights of PLW NCDs and understanding of patient safety. And another one is to understand how PLW NCDs implement safety measures in their day-to-day life. So our research methodology is, the study design is the primary research. This is the primary study we are doing, and it is still going on. Responses are coming, and the study analysis is the descriptive statistics. Till now, we have received the 74 responses, and the exclusion criteria is people who are not suffering from NCDs and the age is below than 18. And the inclusion criteria is people who are suffering from NCDs and age is more than 18. Our target population is the people living with NCDs, some chronic conditions, and the language of the questionnaire is the English and in Hindi. Mode of the data collection is the questionnaire-based study from the Google survey, and the type of questionnaire is the open and close-ended. So till now we have received the 74 responses, and again it is the ongoing survey, and we are waiting for more responses, and we are expecting more than 300 responses. So out of 74 responses we have received, 63 people are from people living with NCDs, and 11 responses we have received the people who are not living with NCDs. And here's the analysis, the age distribution of the responses. So here the overall 54% of population belongs to 41 to 60 age, and the rest is the 16% people are 60 above age, and 30% of people is 20 to 40 age. The gender distribution is the 45% of population is female and 55% of population is the male population. Let's come to the first aspect of the study, which is awareness. So the level of awareness among people living with NCDs was determined in below indicators to understand what does patient safety mean to patient living with NCDs, to establish an understanding of level of awareness among PLW NCDs in dealing with patient safety issues during their daily lives, and to comprehend how well patients are aware of key patient safety indicators, like first point, who's the first point of contact, about the medication related issues, something like that. And then here's the first question we have asked: have you heard the term patient safety? And here only 43% of people saying is yes, they hear the term patient safety, and rest 57 people are saying no, we haven't heard it. So the next question is, what does patient safety mean to you? So here's the answer. You can see only 46% of population is right, which is the safe medical practices to reduce the risk of errors. Other 54% of people is not knowing the actual meaning of patient safety. Here the next question is, who is responsible for patient safety? And here, this is the multiple choice question, people can choose one or more responses from the answer. So here 57% people is believing that doctor is the only person who is responsible for patient safety, and you can see that only 6% people are saying that they are also responsible for patient safety. And yes, combining that, 47% of people saying that yes, it is the responsibility of everyone, not just doctor. So the next question is the how have you experienced any of these while seeking healthcare? Again, it is a multiple choice question. So the majority of the responses we have received, that 68% of population faced medication harm during their healthcare journey, and the rest is the 33% hospital acquired infections, and the 39% is the misdiagnosis. Now if we talk about the next question, yeah. So next question is, have you ever been confused between two medications with the same packaging but different names? And yes, here we saw very impressive results. Like 73% of people are saying yes, they're confused with the same packaging but different name. So here the naming, labeling, and packaging is the very important thing that we can think about. Like, it is very important to ensure that for patient safety and medication safety. Now the next one is, yeah. So the next one is, what is the best thing you can do if you have a question about your treatment? And most of the people are saying they will speak up with their doctor and consult regarding their problems, and rest other are saying search on internet, consult from a family members, etc. Now the next question is the awareness on patient safety can increase the ability to identify harm and discuss with care providers. And most of the people saying yes, it is very important. The awareness is very important to identify the harm for patients, and it is important to discuss with care providers to decrease the harm. Now, next question is do you believe the awareness of patient safety is lacking in the community? And yes, 63% of people saying strongly agree, and the rest, if we can add 32% also, the majority of the population are saying yes, the patient safety in the awareness of patient safety in the community is lacking somewhere. So here's the result of the first part. As I mentioned earlier, 57% of the respondents believe that the doctors alone are the responsible for patient safety, while 30% believe that everyone is accountable, whether it is nurses, patient, pharmacists, or anyone in maybe the caregiver also. So now the next one is the 73% were confused between the two medications with the same packaging with different names. So naming, labeling, and packaging plays an important role in the life of patients and medication arm. So the next one is the medication arm has been experienced 68.20. As per the WHO, it is the main leading cause of the harm in healthcare industry. Now the next, the other one is if now we have asked this question, if they have question about their treatment, the best thing what they can do is again they speak with their doctor. The result shows that 68% people are saying that they will speak their doctor rather than uh, collecting information from here and there from their family members and from internet. They will speak directly with the doctor. And then the for the next part, I'm handing over to my friend Tamanna Sachdeva. Thank you, Tamanna Sachdeva. Hand over.
Thank you so much, Ankit, for giving such a good start and explaining it so well. So I will not take much time and just cover the knowledge and the practice aspect and take you through the main observations. So under the knowledge, we have determined how well they are aware of the patient's safety terminology and also the expectations from the patient side on how we can improve their knowledge. Can we have the next slide? Yeah, so patient safety aims to, this is the first question that we asked them, and you can see the responses on the screen that measure of the patient says that yes, it's all of the above, like all of the aspects like patient harm, adverse events, errors are included under the patient safety. Can we have the next slide? So patient safety applies to all of the above, says 47%. So it says that keeping patients safe in hospitals, ambulatory settings, but we can observe that most of the half of the population says that keeping patients safe while in the hospitals is what actually patient safety applies to, not monitoring patient by the caregiver at home and not in the ambulatory setting. So this is the one thing that we need to note about the perspective of the patient. Next slide. So this is the major part that we have seen that antibiotic drug resistance develops due to. So many of the respondents says that wrong medications prescribed or injected. So this is the 47% of the population is actually not more than, in fact, or even the 30% is only aware about what AMR is, and rest of the population is not aware about what is AMR. So next slide. The best ways to enhance knowledge. So people says that counseling by the medical professionals says that 47%, we need 47% of responses. If we have that counseling from the medical professionals, then our basic knowledge on patient safety can be enhanced, and all of the above says that 33%, in which it includes physical workshop, capacity building, and counseling by different other medical professionals. Next slide. And people living with NCDs says that yes, they are vulnerable to these kind of safety events, and 98% of the population says that yes, they are vulnerable to these kind of an adverse event. But we can see that 2% are still saying that they are not vulnerable to these kind of events. Next slide. So what is the first thing you will do if you're experiencing any health problems? So many of them says that 84% they'll consult a physician. So it's a good response from the respondents that yes, they should consult a physician if they have any question about their treatment. So next slide. This is the overall result. So as we have already discussed that 46% of the respondents believe that patient safety includes patient harm, and 39 believe that it has to be something to do with just patient harm alone, not other aspects. So only 30% know what actually the AMR means, but AMR needs to be, this kind of an awareness on AMR needs to be spread among the people living in NCDs, because they are a more vulnerable population to these kind of adverse events, and antimicrobial resistance awareness should be there among the people who are living with NCD especially. So 98.4% people still believe they're more vulnerable to safety incidents, and 47.6% believe that providing these kind of capacity building, handbooks, physical workshops, and counseling by medical professionals can enhance their knowledge on patient safety. Also, it is very much critical to note that 50.9% of people still think that they will self-medicate, talk to a family member, or visit to a pharmacist before they see a physician if they have any health issues. So next slide. So next slide, it's a practice part. This will be more interesting part of what we are actually waiting for. So can we have the next slide, please? So if you have chronic condition, how often do you visit? So it says major of the population say they visit quarterly. And if you can see that 19% of also says that as when required. So this is very critical that the people who are living with NCDs need continuous monitoring, continuous visits to their healthcare professionals, so they're in touch with their medical healthcare professionals. And this is very surprising that 19% still thinks that is required as when they need it. So can we have the next slide? So medications advised by someone other than modern practitioners, if you can see that 54% says it's family members. And this is very interesting that the next it's followed by the pharmacist, and some other says that Ayurveda or other traditional practitioners. So can we have the next slide? So have you ever purchased medicines? So it says 78% says that they have purchased their medicines without the doctor's prescription. It's very critical to note that from the respondents, especially who are living with NCDs and they're vulnerable to these kind of, patient safety events. So next slide. So do you practice self-medication to treat? So it says 76% they do practice self-medication, and rest 24% says they don't practice self-medication to treat their medical issues. Next. How many times you have self-medicated in the last 6 months? So 60% says more than 2 times they have self-medicated in the last 6 months. Next. So are you aware of the medications you have been prescribed by your condition? So 95%, it's good to know that they're at least aware of what medications they are taking. So it's critical that they should know what medicines they are taking and why they are taking for their health condition. Next slide. Do you maintain a record? So 51% say they don't maintain a record of which medicines they're allergic to, but it's critical that to have a record on what medicines you are allergic to if you have some kind of record of what actually they have. So next slide. So have you ever been in a situation where you have get a substitute of the prescribed medicine? So 89% says yes of what they have been prescribed. They have been asked to take a substitute of that medicine. Next. So in response to previous question says that 41% says that they have received less than the expected result of the substitute they have been prescribed, apart from the what medicines they have to be prescribed by their physicians or doctors. So can we get the next slide? So these are the results, and I won't be going deep into the results. So I'll just be focusing on the major points, that it's important to know that 88.9% of them have been in a situation when they were not able, they were unable to get the prescribed medication and were asked to take a substitute, out of which 41.3% have received less than the expected. So this is a critical point that we need to note, that yes, this is something of a concern, and this has to be tackled in future if we see any kind of the situations. Next slide. So these are the discussion points that we have concluded, because this study is ongoing. So this has what we have concluded as part of the responses that we have received is that people living with NCDs have expressed their concern about increasing community patient awareness, that yes, there need to be some patient safety awareness amongst the community, and these kind of awareness can help the patient to detect what the issue is, what the harm is, so that there is a connect between the healthcare provider and a patient, so that they can easily ask their demands on this is the harm that they have caused, and doctor's job has been slightly lightened because of the knowledge of the patients on the patient safety part. So people awareness of their roles in ensuring safe care as well as their rights to such care should be raised through these kind of public campaigns, and also capacity building part needs to be tackled. For example, we need to have such capacity building platforms where these patients are aware about patient safety terminology, what can be the repercussions of these patient safety events, and what can be done if anyone have undergone these kind of patient safety issues. So counseling part, everything needs to come into place when we talk about these kind of vulnerable groups, especially who are living with NCDs and other vulnerable part of groups. So while some of them are aware of patient safety, it's a very good positive point that in our study, some of the respondents were aware about patient safety. But when we did the practice check, so it was crucial to note that patients typically overlook about when it comes to practice. So that is the major part that we need to focus on. Just not the awareness thing of patient is aware, it's also critical that the practice and implementation is also in alignment of what they are aware of. So healthcare professionals and pharmacists must be trained to provide patient safety counseling at all levels of healthcare. So it is critical that we need to see the dots, what a patient goes through their journey, where there is first point of contact, where is there is last point of contact, and every dots needs to be connected and trained about what patient safety is, so that in the cycle of a patient safety, that each of them are aware that how to take this forward. So this is the overall study, and this is the ongoing one. So we invite all the participants to say, contribute to the study, and we will definitely share the results once its study is completed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamanna. Thank you, Ankit, for that presentation. And it'll be interesting to note if any of those trends will change as the number of participants and the number of respondents to that survey increase, and whether we will have some kind of a skew. Also, I don't think we have disaggregated by disease area. So are there patients with diabetes or cancer who face higher risk of harm vis-a-vis somebody who probably doesn't have to visit a healthcare facility as often as a person with cancer, or maybe somebody who's on dialysis? So we don't know, but it will be interesting to carry this forward to understand what patient safety means to patients and families. Also, it brings us to an important area where how can patients themselves report incidences, and whether there is a mechanism within our healthcare systems and policies for patients to report directly. So thank you so much for bringing that to light. And without much ado, let's move forward to our first speaker of the day, Dr. Jayant Srivastav. And Dr. Jayant Srivastav is a very well-known personality. I don't really have to introduce him formally, because I think everybody who works in quality and patient safety knows him very well, right from India to Geneva. But to be able to complete the formalities, Dr. Jayant Srivastav has an advanced qualification in medicine and health systems management. He leads quality and patient safety at the National Health System Resource Center, and he is an elected member of the National Academy of Medical Sciences and founder member of Indian Society of Hospital-Based Management and Health Systems Action Network. Over to you, Dr. Srivastav. Dr. Srivastav will be speaking about high reliability systems under Global Patient Safety Action Plan to ensure medication safety. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ratna Devi, for inviting me. In fact, extremely grateful. And because of certain preoccupations, I could not connect earlier with our co-presenters, but extremely grateful to you. I was listening, in fact, before I come to a formal part of my presentation on the topic which you have given to me to speak. I was very keen and to know a bit more this ongoing work, which under your guidance, these two young colleagues are taking. And in fact, it comes to my mind that this could be the path breaking for the country, where in fact, largely in the health system per se, whether it is the public or non-government sector in India, we don't have the baseline data. And more so in the context of our users, that what do they feel, how do they perceive, and really very excited to hear this presentation, and look forward getting whenever this report becomes available in the public domain, to more about this information. And taking the clue what these two young colleagues spoke just now, that somewhere there is a mixed bag which is coming up at certain level. Some awareness is there, but at certain level, still there are many issues. And since this year's the theme is on the medication safety, largely all of us are observing in some way or other, where it becomes a concern that where Tamanna mentioned about the wrong substitution, more so in the public system where we are connected with, that often in a particular drug, irrational substitution has become a kind of accepted practice. And I still have my reservation that how does one decide? I mean, to give an example, I'm sorry, I'm taking 1 or 2 minutes extra to share the personal experience that someone known, well-controlled diabetic, already on, say, vildagliptin plus something more. And in one of the government-owned dispensary recently, in fact, it just came to my notice just 3 days back, have been given the substitution with the vildagliptin with the combination of metformin. I leave it to the judgment and to your, we can imagine that what harm would it cause when these kinds of substitution just takes place. So, the thing has to be there. Now coming to the that main topic, that how do we, in fact, largely that system becoming highly reliable. And if I will dwell deep down, it becomes that how do we ensure that whatever we are doing at the different level, it becomes a part of DNA of the working at every level. Every level in the sense that, okay, like, we have in the country context, in India's context, we have the different level of facilities. As I say, a person interested in the quality and patient safety, it becomes a concern where there is a lot of decentralization. Prescribing authority has been given, fine. I don't have any issue in that. But when the country is moving towards the ambulatory care, where the government orders are being taken that, okay, certain narcotic groups of drugs could also be administered in the home setting. Nothing wrong in that, because in India, it still remains one of the country where the per capita utilization of the opioid group of the analgesic is on the lowest. Though we are the highest producer in the world. So that kind of thing happens. But how do we ensure the safety in those settings where the supervisory support is not there? These are the challenge, and that is where this developing the high reliable system somewhere becomes important. Let me try to put on my presentation. I hope it's visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you so much. Thanks. So, largely, let's try to understand when we're like in this Global Patient Safety Action Plan, it talks about the high reliable system, high reliability. And in fact, the same thing got articulated a couple of years back when Professor Margaret Crook, as part of the Lancet Commission study, also, articulated that the countries will have to be coming and moving towards having the high reliable system. Like there are many organizations, certain visuals you will be able to see where the preciseness becomes so important in their day-to-day working, whether it is a nuclear plant or whether it is that, the aircraft. In the health side, we have to learn a lot from the aviation industry as such. I'm not talking about the military aviation, I'm talking about the civil aviation. And how do they ensure the preciseness with so much of the variation in the aircraft, so much variation in the, after all, this is the man, which is an interface between the machine and which ensures that all our flights are safe. So somewhere we got to have that kind of learning. And in that context, if you look at on the certain basic attributes, this also forms the part of our Global Patient Safety Action Plan also, that all these organizations, varied organizations, they have certain, say, fixed ideas, fixed in the sense that they remain focused, that nothing should go wrong. And whatever it needs to be done to achieve this thing, they try to do, whether it entails consulting someone, and all these organizations are highly resilient. All of us must have noticed that, God forbid, if something goes wrong in the aviation, flying does not stop, but the learning, whatever has taken place, gets shared across globally. In no time, they call it, gets issued across globally for all the countries who are the part of the Global Civil Aviation Organization, learning from there. Like a few years back, we have had the instances where in Indonesia and in one more country, where one version of the Boeing 737 had certain technical problems, and many precious lives were lost. But they learned from there, they modified the system, and the system came back. System was so resilient. But are we ensuring these things when, I mean, all of us in our own sphere with our own, say, perspective, have certain learnings taking place, and somewhere it becomes important. Then broadly, there are, in fact, largely, there are three broad imperatives which are important, and there cannot be any substitute for the leadership role, whether it is at the facility level, in charge, or the medical superintendent, at the department level, head of department, in the nursing care, the role of the nursing superintendent or the nursing supervisor, even for the cleaning, as simple as that. I mean, we have seen during COVID time, all of you must have also experienced that what should be the actual correct protocol for the cleaning. As simple as that, whether it is moving away from the dirty to the clean area or the clean to the dirty area, that also, in fact, it left. So at every level, the load of the role of the leadership cannot be overemphasized. Safety culture and measuring whatever we do. Over a period of time, we also note that it has improved considerably. And now the systems are, no longer the people are just talking about the quality assurance, quality improvement, but the focus is shifting on the resilience, on the reliability factor, and moving beyond that, risk mitigation and the risk management. And in that context, in fact, it becomes important that we ensure, and that is where the trust of the public becomes important. That, in the country context, again, India's example with the having invested so much of the money, whether under the umbrella of the National Health Mission and other way around. But are the people coming back? Or have we become only the poor second choice of the system? And these are, in fact, the 5 broad strategic objectives, which were referred by Dr. Ratna Devi also in her opening address, are well ingrained. But the challenge is going to be that how do we ensure that this becomes the part of the DNA, and that, as a public health person, remains, in fact, always our concern. All of us are too aware the quantum of harm the medication safety causes, but in India, our concern remains that medication error is one of the prime most. The data may vary from the place to place, but that is the large picture which emerges. And at every level, like we have seen in the district hospital, even in the non-government sector hospital also, where the dispensaries at many places are outsourced, that this thing may happen at any level. No one is immune, and there are no easy solutions. So the common thing which comes out that these problems, these medication errors, are recurring in nature. It does not happen at one place. I still recall long back when I started my career, that time this nebulization of the bronchial asthma cases was not so common. It was, was just getting introduced. And believe you me, I have seen a young life getting lost because in place of the injection Deriphyllin, injection adrenaline was administered. You may be against, but these types of errors is still, there are in number. And they are not getting attributed to the certain causes which could be addressed. At same time, the organizations are not learning. And in the broad causes at many levels. And one of the weakest links, in fact, always in any chain. Coming from I basically come from the aviation background long back, about say 20 years back, when I switched over to the public health system. That human failure is the one of the human factors, whatever one wants to call, or ergonomics, are the one of the major contributor of anything when something goes wrong. And in our setups, how do we manage the oral orders? That is also a challenge, and the actions could be taken at the multiple levels. It could be at the system level. I mean, we can try to address at the system level, at the human level. But the short message, my interpretation is that, I mean, whatever we do at the system level is more sustainable. Though at same time, the fact also remains that that is the hardest to implement. And it takes a lot of time and effort to get it done. So in general, I mean, having a safety culture is somewhere will improve the medication safety in particular. And it is high time that we learn. Resources are not a constant in the country, but somewhere we got to be including IT, and we can think of having the certain say AI, artificial intelligence, which could contribute. And once I said that, I mean, it is the prescriber, it is the nurse, it is the pharmacist. Everybody will have a different role. And we got to be learning from each other. It cannot be that only one person ensures. Like Ankit showed in his slide, that primarily the general perception was that it is the doctor's responsibility. Doctor being a team leader, I mean, in our work setup, we do agree, but at same time, one of the role is of the, I mean, the prescriber or the doctors could also be that how does he ensure that whole team moves along. By nature, though I'm a physician, I mean, I used to be a practicing physicians, doctors are much solo player, but that perception is high time we change. And our pharmacists, they get the due recognition in the system. Like day before yesterday, the country has come out with the NLEM, National List of Essential Medicine. After a lot of review, I've been the part of that discourse, coming out with the 384 medicines. And our work has started that how do we take it forward. And in the whole exercise, the role of the pharmacist cannot be defined. This is my last slide, that somewhere the site are taking care of the second victim, whether it was on whatever was the primary reason. And often in the medication safety, that thing cannot be lost. So to conclude, it will be important that a culture change should happen. Though I know it is easy for me to talk, but it will happen gradually. Leaders have to play an important role, whether it is the leader in the nursing profession or the medical profession or any other, or a hospital administrator or the superintendents, to create an enabling environment for learning and respect. And then only we perhaps will be able to move ahead with the high reliability system, and which will go a long way is strengthening all our processes, including ensuring the medication safety. Once again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And that's all. I'm sorry if I have exceeded my time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for appreciating the fact that we have tried to collect some information from patients to understand what their perceptions on patient safety is, and the fact that we don't have a baseline. And we definitely look forward to your guidance to make this more robust. So this was a very small initiative on our part to just reach out to patients. But if you want a baseline that is scientific and reliable, then we would probably need support of institutions and guides like yourself to frame it in a better way so that the data is usable. So we certainly look forward to more engagement with yourself and the institution, and see how we can really collect some data that's useful to form a baseline. So thank you so much for your thoughts and for the presentation on why it is important to have systems that are reliable. We now move on to our next speaker, who had an emergency engagement with the ministry today and has not been able to join us in person. He is Mr. Vivek Sehgal, and as you can see from the slide in front of us, he's the Director General of the Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India, which represents the research-based pharmaceutical companies. And he has more than 3.5 decades of cross-sectoral experience in industry and policy advocacy. And can we have his video, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. Thanks, Dr. Ratna, for organizing this wonderful webinar on the World Patient Safety Day. It could not have had a better theme than medication without harm. I would like to apologize for not being available in person due to a very important government meeting which came in and overlapped with my schedule, which was definitely blocked for this particular program. As much as I would have wanted to be there, at least live with all of you, but could not really help it. Patient safety has emerged with the evolving complexity in healthcare systems and needs to be safeguarding the patient's well-being in healthcare facilities. Patient harm is caused due to unsafe care, a growing global public health challenge of negligent care as leading causes of death and disability worldwide. I think the cornerstone of patient safety is continuous improvement based on learning, training, and on-ground staff, and amplifying awareness across the value chain, including among patients, patient support groups, hospitals, doctors, and other paramedical staff. There is a clear consensus that quality health services across the world would be effective, safe, and patient-centric always. Additionally, in order to realize the benefits of quality healthcare, health services must be timely, equitable, integrated, and efficient. To ensure the successful implementation of patient safety strategies, clear policies, leadership capacity, data to drive safety improvements, skilled healthcare professionals, and effective involvement of patients in their care are imperative. Let me talk more in the Indian context right now. In recent years, there has been an urgency to improve the quality of healthcare in India with the broader vision of the universal health coverage. To this end, several initiatives have been taking place at the central and the state levels to address the issues of patient safety. Challenges in patient safety in India range from spurious drugs and vaccination and medical devices safety, as well as AMR, antimicrobial resistance. A wide range of these initiatives are required to be taken to assure patient safety, and it gets implemented at different levels of care, both in public and the private sector healthcare delivery systems. There is multiplicity of national and international stakeholders working in this area, and they all need to come together to have an effective patient safety mechanism in place. Over the last 2 years, there has been an increase in the regulatory norms and rules governing the safe development of vaccines and therapies for the COVID-19 treatment plan. Developing a culture adhering to the highest levels of quality and safety is a long-term endeavor and requires a conducive environment at policy, administrative, and service provision levels. This requires investments for creating structures for quality and safety, having credible quality accreditation systems and regulatory mechanisms to ensure compliance to safety standards. Let me dwell now a little more on medication without harm. Unsafe medication practices and medication errors are a leading cause of injury and avoidable harm in healthcare systems across the world. Globally, the cost associated with medical errors has been estimated at a whopping $42 billion US dollars annually, which is a major sum. This is something which is quantifiable, but what is not quantifiable is, of course, the harm which it causes to the patients and their relatives. Multiple interventions to address the frequency and impact of medication errors have already been developed, yet their implementation is varied. That's one area where I think we need to discuss, deliberate, and work out mechanism which can ensure a higher level of implementation of these systems. A wide mobilization of stakeholders supporting these sustained actions is actually required, because only a few, far and few, or one-off activities will not bring in the desired impact in this area. It's also very important to have the information reach out so far as patient access is concerned. And across the world, more than 2 billion people today cannot access the healthcare they need. And when facing serious, complex, and rare diseases, even when patient access programs and assistance programs are in place already to help patients. This issue must be approached in a sustainable and a targeted way to strengthen and transform the healthcare systems. Complex access challenges require deep collaboration and lasting commitments between patients and partners across the public and private sectors. Access loop begins with the patient's awareness of an illness or condition and ends with the medication adherence. That's the cycle, which is what we all need to ensure goes through flawlessly. Common barriers that patients encounter should be noted at each point in the process of accessing medications. And often, patient health literacy has been the most common barrier which we have seen throughout the globe. Other barriers have also been related to medication-related costs and insurance. So there is a need for a framework to provide for actionable steps to break down those barriers to patient care. And I'm sure the discussions today of the different stakeholders would definitely bring about some new thoughts and new ideas to create this impact in terms of breaking the barriers for patient care which exist in the current ecosystem. The role of stakeholders is something which I'd like to spend some more time in terms of how the different stakeholders need to get together and make this happen. And one of the key stakeholders which I represent is, of course, the industry. And we would be looking forward to many partnerships and other models which we can develop to engage with other stakeholders, including NGOs and patient safety organizations, to take the cause of patient safety forward. The NGOs, the patient organizations, scientific organizations, along with academic and research institutions, play a critical role in the entire healthcare delivery system. Partnerships, as I said, must develop at both strategic and operational levels. I think that's one of the keys for the success in terms of the implementation as we go forward. A collaborative action plan will help envisage patients, families, and communities as key partners at all levels of action. The aim to shape and amplify the messages of World Patient Safety Day and collaborate in implementation and designing of new global patient safety challenges would be possible. The stakeholders, which also include the pharmaceutical companies, must engage patients, caregivers, and families as partners in the safe care. Let me also look at this particular specific in more detail. So patient safety would depend upon their full environment as the users of the healthcare system and the people who are familiar with the entire patient journey. Work towards influencing base policies and action on the nature of the care setting and use scientific expertise and patient experience to improve safety. It will also require advocating provision of adequate human and financial resources to tackle the most serious patient safety problems. Engaging the private sector to help it define its role in improving patient safety and publicize patient safety solutions to garner public support. Also, we need to advocate measures to address overcrowding in healthcare facilities at the local, national, and global levels. Partnering with patient-led organizations, as I said, to raise public awareness of the impact that safe staffing has on patients, families, and communities. We should be able to convene researchers and research bodies to create an evidence base on the effectiveness of licensing, regulatory and accreditation systems in improving patient safety. One of the major stakeholders which I would like to end my conversation with is the role of the pharmacists. I think they are a key connect between the pharmaceutical companies, the doctors, and the patients. That link with the patients is something which we really back at home in India need to work upon. We need a higher role for the pharmacists going forward to ensure that the communications on safety and efficacy of medicines is communicated to the patients at the time of dispensing the medicines. It's very important that the pharmacists, apart from the mere prescription and the dispensing of the medicines, are trained, retrained on patient safety issues, and we build up mechanisms, systems wherein we are able to ensure that the patient is being communicated to when it comes to all these important things regarding their own safety, and even simple things which we may all take for granted as to how the medicine needs to be administered or taken, sometimes is a cause of patient safety. With that note, I wish the conference, the webinar, a great success, and I'd like to thank all my fellow speakers as well as all the participants who joined this afternoon to be with us in solidarity of medication without harm. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Sehgal, for this very powerful message that you have given. Two important takeaways: that all stakeholders need to work in unison for the common goal of patient safety, and industry has a critical role to play in that, as well as the fact that we need to empower pharmacists, not just the patients and families, but the pharmacists, especially community pharmacists, who are probably the first point of contact for many patients, to be able to enhance communication on safe medication practices, and also good communication on what needs to be done if there is an adverse event, also on how to take your medication on time and what to do if you do not understand. So thank you so much for that message. And with that, we will now move on to our next speaker. who is very passionate about patient safety. And she is Miss Arshia Bhandari, and I've had the opportunity to interact with her at several levels, and I'm always very inspired by the work that she does. She's a pharmacovigilance professional with over 16 years experience and end-to-end pharmacovigilance processes with Blue Chip Pharma. But more importantly, she's a patient advocate now, and she interacts with various levels of patients and patient groups to understand what kind of harm is being experienced by these patients and their caregivers, and tries to bring it all into the scientific lens of her pharmacovigilance that she's trained on. So it's a beautiful combination, and I would love to hear her views and thoughts on the topic that she's going to be talking about, which is patient and family engagement under the Global Patient Safety Action Plan to ensure medication safety. Over to you, Arshia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratna, for such a warm introduction. And thank you again for this opportunity to talk about patient safety on Patient Safety Day. That's I mean, something that I really care for, as you said, and passionate about. So before I start my presentation, I would like to thank the previous speakers who have talked about different sections or different parts on how different stakeholders can ensure patient safety, and the discussions have been very insightful and has been a great learning experience. So what I am going to talk today is about the patient and family engagement for patient safety. So let me first share my screen. Just give me a moment. Okay, I hope I'm audible and there's no disturbance in the background.
No, there is no disturbance, and you're very clear.
Okay, great. Great. So let me just start my presentation. Just give me one moment. Okay, so what I will be taking today is from the roles of stakeholders. I'll be talking about the strategic objective 4 from GPSAP, that is patient and family engagement. And the objective is to engage and empower patients and families to help and support the journey to safe healthcare. So to begin with, I will just quote from what GPSAP says about it. So patient engagement empowerment is perhaps the most powerful tool to improve patient safety. Patients, families, and other informal caregivers bring insights from their experiences of care that cannot be substituted or replicated by clinicians, managers, or researchers. This is especially so for those who have suffered harm. Patients, families, and caregivers can serve as vigilant observers of a patient's condition and can alert healthcare professionals when new needs arise. Given proper information, the patient and family can help to be the eyes and ears of the system. However, having said that, most countries, particularly low and middle income countries, do not have a strong participation in the patient safety improvements. So I'll go to my next slide. Yeah, so what are the barriers that we have at the outset? That is what I would like to discuss about. What are the barriers to patient involvement or patient and family engagement in patient safety? So as I said, most countries, particularly the low and middle income countries, do not have strong participation in the patient safety improvements. Patients' voice are not prominent in many healthcare systems for several reasons. And some of these reasons include cultural specificities of particular organizations or that nation, then paternalistic approach towards patients. And to explain this a little better, I would like to share a patient story that I would say, something that it's my own story in a way, and also a story of many other patients. So so we all as patients have to see the physicians, and once upon a time I went to a physician for a particular ailment for one of my family members, and he explained the diagnosis and everything, and then during the process, because I wanted to understand a little better, because it was a very major diagnosis that was being done, I wanted to understand on what basis he has made this diagnosis, and I was scolded for asking the questions. I was told, you've become a Google doctor, or are you a medical professional to ask me these questions? This is, I am an expert in this. I have been working in this field for a very long time. So I very, compassionately explained to him that, I am from a similar field, so I have medical literacy and I can understand these points. And eventually he eased out and explained it to me. However, after the engagement with this physician, I was called by the person who referred me to this physician, and I was actually again scolded that how could you ask these questions from a psychiatric that a physician who's so well known. So, so what I mean to say is that this paternalistic approach is still there. To take it further, we went for a second opinion to another doctor, and it so happened that the doctor had the empathy and understanding of patient psychology or a family psychology, and they helped us understand the diagnosis. We wanted to go for alternative therapy. He very, he very compassionately agreed to it, and he said, if there is a problem, you can always come back to me. You can start whatever you want to. So I would say there are two sides to it. It's not just that there's only paternalistic approach. There is a lot of improvement, or I would say a different side to it, where the physicians or the healthcare professionals are very compassionate and understand what patients really need and they need to be engaged in their healthcare decisions. Then the third barrier is medical illiteracy, and it is a major, and this is something that previous speakers have also talked about. And I would say one of the major reasons of medical illiteracy, if we talk about India, is because is the lack of information, authentic information on disease areas or medications, which is something that we can really work upon. Then this is from different countries, since we are talking about, and there's the other barrier is failure to identify suitable patient advocates and champions, or to encourage them to speak up. And this is one of so when we say to encourage them to speak up, there is a fear of speaking up, whether it is speaking up about a negative experience, or it is reporting a negative experience. So this is something that we need to work upon. Then lack of leadership and understanding towards creating a culture of patient safety and patient involvement, and absence of organizational infrastructure or space within governance structures, or lack of funding. Now, let me give you another example, and I'm quoting this from CIOMS 11. So what are the barriers? And this is a study, this was a Genetic Alliance dialogue that happened in 2015, and an observation from there. What are the barriers to meaningful engagement in medicine development identified at National Health Council? And these are some of the barriers, as I said. One is the culture. So and culture specificities, I'll talk a little more detail about it in the next slide probably. So the culture specificities could be, and it is different for different countries. There are countries like EU and US who have really advanced in including patients and engaging patient families and patients in medicine development and other healthcare areas. So it can be a science-based approach, financial risks that could be there, or organizational structure, whether it is in healthcare organizations or government bodies, or the patient groups that are there, what kind of engagement can be there for the patient groups with the government or the healthcare organizations. Then there are regulatory and legal uncertainty. And this is an example from FDA that what and how information is reviewed by FDA. What kind of interactions are there with patients? Then communication, whether the proprietary information can be shared and to what extent it can be shared with the patients or families or public at large. Translation and public acknowledgement and visibility of engagement of patients. So since these observations are from 2015, there have been a lot of developments at global level. And to talk about some of them, in the US, the 21st Century Cures Act and PDUFA6 committed FDA to develop a 4-part patient PFDD guidance, enhancing the incorporation of patients' voice in medical product development, regulatory decision making. And the first part of this was released in June 2020. In parallel, in June 2021, the International Council, the ICH, released a reflection paper on key areas where incorporation of patients' perspective could improve the quality, relevance, safety, and efficiency of drug development and inform regulatory decision making. Then in Europe, patient engagement was further bolstered by the recommendation that all clinical trials conducted in the European Union include a statement on patient engagement. The protocol shall at least include where patients were involved in the design of the clinical trial, a description of their involvement. Passed in 2014. This requirement becomes effective as of December 2021. Then in Japan as well, patient engagement in medicine development is supported by the government, a related regulatory agency and a funding agency. And the PMDA launched the Patient Centricity Working Group in May 2019. The group facilitates outreach to patients and release the guidance and patient participation for relationship between patients. Then capacity building initiatives were established to help researchers and patients collaborate effectively. For example, the European Patients Academy, EUPATI, developed patient education to train formal patient experts. EU regulations that came into force in 1999 mandate patient leaflets in medicine packaging. And finally, and this is not an exhaustive list, I just took a few pointers from the CIOMS2. And so the last one, I would say that there has been a lot of change since the EU Pharmacovigilance Directive and regulation came into force in 2012, and patients' voice has been included by EMA. For medicine development, patient safety, and medication safety. So I hope, are there any questions towards this, or should we just continue? So
Please continue.
Okay, sure. So then, I'm quoting this from CIOMS2. What are the guiding principles? Why is patient voice vital? And what are the guiding principles on which these documents, whether it is CIOMS2 or the GPSAP, has been based? And these are some of those. The patient voice offers a valuable perspective throughout the development of medicine. It should be fully incorporated into the decision-making process. Patients have expert knowledge and understanding of their diseases and conditions. This means they have equal credibility as those who are scientific and medical experts. And this, I would say, this is based, this is a vision that we have, that patients should be empowered with the authentic information and should be empowered with support to be able to have that kind of knowledge and understanding. Then, when we are involving patients, there has to be reimbursement of expenses or compensation for patients towards that, considering training of all stakeholders during the planning for patient management engagement activities. Every effort should be made to maintain patients' independence, and balanced information, transparency, and open communication are key. So now it was just an introduction I wanted to give to you on how what is patient involvement and how patient and family engagement is being envisioned by WHO towards the future. So now I will come to the strategic objective 4 from the GPSAP, and I'll briefly take a few pointers from that. So what are the strategies that GPSAP talks about to involve and engage patients? One is engage patients, family, and civil society organizations in co-development of policies, plans, strategies, programs, and guidelines to make healthcare safer. Second, learn from the experience of patients and families exposed to unsafe care to improve understanding of the nature of harm and foster the development of more effective solutions. Build the capacity of patient advocates and champions in patient safety. Establish the principles and practice of openness and transparency throughout healthcare, including through patient safety incident disclosure to patients and families. And finally, provide information and education to patients and families for their involvement in self-care and empower them for shared decision-making. Now, these are the basic strategies that have been outlined in the strategic objective 4. And the stakeholders who are responsible for implementing these strategies include the governments across the world, different countries, healthcare facilities and services, then patients and caregivers, and finally the WHO Secretariat. So what I would like to emphasize here is what is envisioned by WHO and by experts who are working towards patient safety and patient involvement and engagement, is that this feat cannot be achieved until all stakeholders are together, and it cannot be done in silos. It has to be a concerted effort from all stakeholders. So I'll take because in brevity of time, I think I'll not go into details of each strategic objective, but I'll take a few pointers just to explain how this is being envisioned and how this is being planned. So taking up first strategy, that is engage patients, families, and civil society organizations in co-development policies, plans, strategies, programs, and guidelines to make healthcare safer. So the actions that are there from different stakeholders, for example, for governments, it is about the infrastructural, to develop infrastructures to be able to provide that kind of an ecosystem to patients that they can be safely and involved in their healthcare decisions. So to take a few points here, develop a national patient safety rights charter or bill with legal standing to include concepts such as patient rights to safety, respect, autonomy, reliable care, information and transparency, promote the concept of safe, respectful care as a human right. Embed the WHO framework on integrated people-centered healthcare services in the design and delivery of safe healthcare services. Create formal mechanisms to include patients and families in national governance mechanisms, working groups, task forces, and committees that plan and take action to improve patient safety in the country. Create alliances with existing patient and civil society organizations on patient safety. And there are other points. Then actions for healthcare facilities and services. And the first and very important point is that there has to be a desire and there has to be an intent to involve patient or family representatives with experience of avoidable harm in healthcare in designing strategies and defining actions to reduce the likelihood of a recurrence. Appoint family and family representatives to be part of organizations, boards, and committees. Then create patient and family advisory councils that are focused on patient safety, develop institutional standards for patient and family engagement, and develop a practice of involvement based on patient experience. Then there's this, how this is going to be implemented and what are the actions for these different stakeholders. And first, which is very important, is to first identify and do a research on, and this is something which in the previous presentation we see PAIR has initiated, research on identifying the behaviors that constitute and support patient and family engagement. Disseminate a patient safety rights charter, advocate full participation of patients, share best practices and lessons learned on patient and family engagement from member states and partners. Then we have action for WHO Secretariat, which include ensure involvement of patients, families, patient safety advocates and champions, patients for patient safety network members, and patients and civil society organizations. Then develop action frameworks, principles for engagement and implementation tools for patient and family engagement for patient safety that countries and institutions can adopt at different levels. So these are guidelines that WHO has given on how different all countries can implement these strategies at different levels through different stakeholders. I would say no, because I think we are going over time now, and for brevity of time, I would say this is the document GPSAP is something that each and every person should read, and we should understand what is it that we really need. And when I'm saying each and every person, it means all the stakeholders, whether it is the government bodies, healthcare facilities or services, patients for sure, because this is how they are going to understand what rights we have as patients and what kind of involvement we can have and speak up for when we are in healthcare. So I would say one of the most important points that is there towards having patients and patient family engage in their, positively engage and contribute with their healthcare decisions is providing the right kind of education and empowering them with the right kind of information and going away from the paternalistic approach where, there's this understanding that patients do not have the medical literacy to take their own decisions. If a patient is counseled well, they have all, they have the power and they have, they get to the point where they can really contribute to the health, to their own healthcare decision. And I would like to conclude that safe healthcare should be seen as a basic human right. As healthcare is predominantly a service, it is always co-produced with the users. Achieving safe care requires that patients be informed, involved, and treated as full partners in their own care. In many parts of the world, this happens much less than it should. Patient families and caregivers have a keen interest, and we are seeing this through in India as well, as we are doing these webinars and as we are engaging in with patients. They have a keen interest in their own healthcare and they want to take these decisions. But so it's important that patients and families are involved at every level of healthcare, ranging from policy making and planning to performance oversight to fully informed consent and shared decision making at the point of care. Patients, families, and communities have essential contributions to make in patient safety, and it's essential that they're included in their healthcare decisions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arshia, for that wonderful presentation and for highlighting why patients and families have an important and critical role in ensuring that patient safety is available, as a thematic area and as a policy for all. And it reminds me of a survey or a poll that I happened to have participated in one of the patient safety webinars. And there were 3 questions. The first question was, does your country have the intent to and is committed to ensure patient safety for all? And a resounding 80 to 90% of the participants in that particular webinar said yes. The second question was, is your country ready to embrace patient safety in its totality? And then from the 80%, it came to around 40%, where people said, no, my country is not ready. And the third question was, is your country ready to provide or commit the resources that are required for embracing patient safety in its totality? And it came down further from 40 to around 28%. So I think this is true of most countries, and this was for the Asia Pacific region. So this is true of most countries in our region. So the intent and the idea is there, but then the forces that are required to drive this forward, to make patient safety a formal structure within the government to be able to contribute to the systems, is still not there. And maybe that is where, we need to work all together as stakeholders to bring that aspect into the government system and into the policymakers. So we will now quickly move on to our most important speaker of the day, and we've been talking about the role that the pharmacists can play in ensuring patient safety, considering that in many of the countries in our part of the world, the pharmacists are the first point of contact when people want to discuss their healthcare issues. So it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Amrai Bang. He's the president of the Malaysian Pharmaceutical Society. He has long experience in patient safety, and he began his career in 1980 as a registered pharmacist. Since then, he has moved forward in various areas, but since 2014, he has played a more prominent role in the Malaysian Pharmacist Society and other international bodies. And he is a member in many national committees and boards in various fields relating to pharmacy in India. Over to you, Mr. Bong.
I will share my screen first. Is it okay, my screen?
We can see it clearly.
Okay. First of all, many thanks, Dr. Ratna, for your kind introduction. And as you know, this is the second time I'm involved in your webinar, and I'm very happy to be here to share my own experience and also what is happening in Malaysia. So to everyone, a very good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone here. Greetings from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Thanking you for spending your precious time to attend this webinar. What happened? I can't.
Next slide.
I can't. Can you share? Can you share my slide, please? Hello.
Ankit, can we have the next slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing. Give me a minute.
Please share because something is wrong. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. I was actually given this topic to talk about the healthcare worker education, skills, and safety under GPSAP to ensure medication safety. So it's a very specific topic for me to discuss. Next. If you look into the actual document, I think the previous speaker actually mentioned, regarding this important document when the WHO actually has published to make sure that we're able to handle the patient safety issues or concern throughout the globe. And it was actually done in the 74th World Health Assembly in 2021. And this framework is an action-oriented framework to facilitate the implementation of strategic patient safety intervention at all levels of the healthcare system globally over the next 10 years. So we're talking from 2021 to 2030. Next slide, please. Well, just to share with you about our experience in Malaysia. Okay, after receiving this framework, we actually has convened our own discussion between the headed by the Ministry of Health, right? And we spent about three days to actually discuss the whole document, and we will come up with the National Action Plan for patient safety for Malaysia. So we hope that with this, we actually can make it available to the country next year. That is actually the target. Next. Well, regarding this topic, I was actually given to look into the role of stakeholders in GPSAP in country context to ensure medication safety. Yeah. So this topic is actually covered under Strategic Objective 5, meaning that of the framework where we talk about inspire, educate, skill, and to protect health workers to contribute to the design and delivery of the safe care system. So it is a very specific framework that given by WHO. Next slide, please. So you can see that that under this strategy, I worried the sort of the main one, yeah, to incorporate patient safety within health professional undergraduate and postgraduate education curricula and continuous professional development with an emphasis on interprofessional learning. So with respect to the medication safety, so I thought that the patient safety curricula should include medication safety module, yeah, to address medication risks, to prevent medication errors at point of prescribing, preparing, transcribing, dispensing, administering, and even monitoring. And I was actually happy with the previous speakers mentioning the role of the pharmacist. So just to share with everyone that because of our background and our training, pharmacists are medicine experts, yeah, and guardians of medicine. Because we're talking about safety here, should be involved in the designing of this curricula. So this is where under this strategy 5.1, in terms of medication safety issue, this is the thing that I can actually share, to contribute to this webinar. Next. All right, the second strategy is actually to identify and establish collaboration with centers of excellence in patient safety education and training. This is a very important, what you call idea by the WHO, but I'm sure this is something new. Yeah. So during our discussion in Malaysia, we felt that this is something new, and we need to do this, meaning that we have this patient safety center, and probably one of them, when after we have created all this, to become the center of excellence for patient safety. And this center should include pharmacists, okay, so that we can actually, especially for medication safety, to carry out activities related to training and research in the field of patient safety, and that also that must include medication safety. Next. For strategy 5.3, ensure the patient safety core competency are part of regulatory requirement for health professionals. So, well, in Malaysia, things are quite established in terms of the legal requirement, regulatory requirement. And I would say that for medication safety, the doctors need to have competency in making decision, the right decision on medicine prescribed for patient. Either, and also in the first one is decision making. The other one is in terms of ordering, whether in written or in prescribing format. Because as you can see, prescribing errors can actually come from prescription. Yeah. So this is something that we have to address the competency of the doctors in terms of prescribing. For the pharmacists, they must have competency in the screening of the prescription, transcribing, of course, preparing, and also dispensing medicine correctly, so that at the point of dispensing, there is no such thing as wrong drug or wrong patient for that matters. Yeah. And also they should be involved in monitoring medicine use for inpatient as well as outpatient. Okay. And in setting, they also have to be involved in medication safety efforts. And number 4, involvement in medication error collecting, analyzing, and reporting at institutional level, national, international. So all these are actually in place in Malaysia at the moment. Yeah. For the nurses, if you talk about their core competencies, I think the most important thing is actually nurses have to be competent in giving and administering medicine in the wards. Yeah, so these are things that need to be done. And one more point is that if we can have clinical pharmacists in the ward, will be really a help to the prescriber, the physician, as well as for the nurses. So I think this is something has been done all over the world, including Malaysia. Next slide, please. All right, and then under strategy 5.4, link commitment to patient safety with appraisal system for healthcare professionals and managers. So I think for this strategy, we hope that the healthcare professional must be encouraged, to be involved in patient safety programs in relation to their core competencies in patient safety. And when I say patient safety, it must include medication safety, because most likely almost all patients are on medication. So that is how big the involvement. So incentives to be given for healthcare professional, especially in quality and safety work, and even in quality and safety improvement effort. I'm sure the previous speakers have a lot of experience with quality system and also accreditation. So if you have that, then it will be very helpful. So another thing that I can think of is actually to provide the continuous professional development points, to be given to healthcare professional who are involved in patient safety, all right, irrespective, and also for their medication safety activities, right? So this in line with the topic that was given. Next. All right. If you talk into the strategy 5.5 under the framework, design care settings, environment, and practices to provide safe working conditions for all staff. This is a very important aspect because we want the practitioner to be safe. We want the staff to be safe. When they are safe, they can provide services to the patient that are needed. Okay, so safe practice by healthcare professional will contribute to a patient safety initiative. So they have to be safe first to provide the safe practice, And then to input legislation. I'm sure in many countries, they have legislation in occupational safety and health, and this must be in place for the healthcare professional because they are handling a lot of things, And if they have a quality management system, it will be very good because we are talking about good governance. And this is very important for the fact that then we can organize the institution, the facility to support patient safety efforts. So quality and safety have to come together, right? And the next step, maybe we can start with quality management system. But I feel that when in hospital, for example, or even in other healthcare facilities, I think we should go for accreditation, because when you go for accreditation, then we can have all this effort to be sustainable in patient safety activities. So that is something that we need to do. And if you talk about even the nitty-gritty, all right, especially this is one example when you talk about provide we have to provide safe environment for preparing sterile products like parenteral nutrition, IV reconstitution of cytotoxic and also non-cytotoxic medication. Okay, so I'm talking this from my previous experience in University Malay Medical Center since 2000, And lastly, I would actually say that this also another aspect where we should include the safe handling of radiopharmaceutical, because in centers where they deal with radiopharmaceutical, this is something that we have to protect the staff and also whoever is actually involved in this. Next slide, please. Okay, this is my last two slides because I want to make it simple. Now we're actually trying to celebrate the World Patient Safety Day all over the world. I shared this picture was actually in Putrajaya in Malaysia, where this is our administrative capital. All right, in 2020 and 2021 with the pandemic, actually Putrajaya has been lighted orange. So that orange is the color that we chosen by WHO, all right, to actually be. So we have taken this initiative in Malaysia to create awareness about our commitment, towards towards patient safety. Next slide, please. You will not stop that in 2 days' time. Okay, we will have this Kuala Lumpur in orange. And then on the 17th of September, on Saturday, where the iconic Twin Towers at KL will be lighted in orange, okay, for I think for two hours from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I end by to wish Happy World Patient Safety Day 2022, and I hope we can increase our commitment toward patient safety so that we have better life, on this. So thank you very much. I end my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bong. And I saw that notification in the network about KL being lit up in orange, and it's going to be exciting because those pictures are so beautiful already. So there's a lot of commitment from the country and from various
Yes.
stakeholders in making patient safety a priority. You described a lot about strategic objective 5, but I think the two key takeaways from it is to include patient safety as a formal part of medical curriculum, whether for doctors or for paramedical staff, and also have a center of excellence that collects data so that this data can be analyzed and used for further learning. And of course, the continuing medical education or professional education of all professionals in the healthcare field, whether it's doctors, pharmacists, nurses, etc. So thank you so much. We have a few questions, and I thought, and some comments as well, and I thought we could give 5 minutes time for that. The first question is to Dr. Srivastav, and sir, if you're still there, it's from Dr. B.K. Rana, and he says, he's thanking you for your excellent presentation, and he's asking that we have traveled a lot, long distance in the last 15 years on patient safety in public and private sector, especially accreditation systems. But what is your advice on achieving a culture of patient safety in our healthcare system?
Thank you, Dr. Ratna and Dr. Rana, both. I read the question, and thought over it. See, the point is that I have a bit of difference of opinion. That Dr. Rana has said that for 15 years we have traveled. But truthfully speaking, in fact, the discourse more so increasing day by day has happened recently only in last, say, 3 to 4 years, at most 5 years, and in which for a variety of the reasons, 2 to 3 years, the whole system, health systems in the states, in the government sector, non-government sector, have been taken away by the COVID. But notwithstanding that, coming to the main issue, that how do we ensure that patient safety becomes one of the key things, and as I mentioned in my conversation also, as a part of DNA, are the culture changes. And the foremost thing which comes to my mind, other than having the accreditation program, somewhere the role of the leadership at appropriate level is starting from the political leadership by the enactment of certain rules, regulation, or the act, whatever it needs, providing that environment of the honest reporting and learning from them. And same thing has to be done at the facility level. Somehow we got to have a system where we learn whatever we have gone wrong. At same time, it is not only that mistakes, they provide an opportunity. There could be certain institution where certain positive things which has happened, and from those things also we can learn and other things. So broadly, being a Bhakt or the DOT of ISO 9001 system, I would still fall back on the CAPA, corrective action, and taking up the appropriate preventive action. Perhaps to my mind, that would go a long way, while the enactment of the appropriate regulation is going to take a lot of time. So I'm stopping here. That was the quick response.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think it's a slow process and a process of trust building and a no blame culture, which can't happen in a short span of time. So thank you so much. The next question, and this is open for anyone. Can we look forward to some more stringent requirements on reporting of adverse events from medical practitioners? Also, can there be provisions to make pack insert mandatory for all medications, new or old? So would any of you like to take this question?
Okay, I take first in terms of the experience in Malaysia. I think for the medication error reporting, we have a national medication error reporting. Everyone can report, including patient, even carers, whatever. And then through that, we do all what is necessary. After that, then we will report to Uppsala, in terms of contributing to global. Yeah, so the thing is actually established in Malaysia. So, and now we have to, we know it is still under reporting, especially from the private sector. So I think the next point will be to encourage general practitioner, specialist clinic to actually report any medication error, and also for the community pharmacists to actually also report. Yeah. And one of the incentives that actually we provide in Malaysia for the community pharmacy, if they report, they can get what you call the CPD point.
Thank you, sir. Just to address the second part of the question, where are there provisions to make pack insert mandatory for all medications, new or old? I think by regulation, many countries in this part of the world do have a mechanism by which patient information leaflets are included. But very few patients actually read those patient information leaflets due to various barriers. I mean, they could be language barriers, it's too small or not understandable or not patient friendly language, etc. And just to highlight, as an organization, we are conducting a pilot on using technology and a QR code to be able to bring this in the electronic form so that you don't have to have physical patient information leaflets into packs, and especially blister packs where the print on the reverse side is very difficult to understand because it's so small. So we are undertaking a pilot in one state to understand what kind of uptake is there from patients with smartphones to actually scan a QR code and try to learn more about their medications. And if this is successful, then probably, those results can be shared with various stakeholders. The last part of it is actually a suggestion and not a question from Ranjit Singh. She's from Malaysia, and she says just a suggestion for patients to be equal partners in decision making, particularly in treatment options, to engage sharing responsibility in medication without harm. There needs to be health literacy, whereby clinicians should communicate with patients in a language they understand. That is, using lay language and spoken and written language patients understand. And we agree to this. It has to be simplified so that there are no medical jargon and people are able to understand this. With this, we come to the end of our World Patient Safety Day celebrations for 2022 webinar. And I really like to thank all of you for being patient and for joining us today and giving us your time. And I really hope to take this initiative forward with all your support and guidance. So thank you so much to all the panelists for joining us today. Please have a rest of the evening, a good evening for the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. See you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.